Officers found 21-year-old Brooke Preston dead on the floor, stabbed multiple times. Meanwhile, he remains behind bars without bond. The question here tonight remains, why? Because even he says he can't remember.
Have you ever sleepwalked, or do you know someone who has? People can do strange things as they walk around oblivious to their surroundings in their sleep. But in this bizarre case, you are going to learn how sleepwalking was used as mitigation in a murder trial. Brook Chantelle Preston was living her best life, blossoming as a young woman, but her life would be cut short by the actions of one of her friends, someone she trusted implicitly. We would like to send our condolences to the friends and family of Brook Chantelle Preston, who was taken from this life far too soon. The 24th of March 2017, Palm Beach, Florida. Two people, Randy Herman Jr. and Brooke Preston, were out having a drink together on the beach. They had been friends since childhood and were more like brother and sister. Brooke had moved to New York recently and had returned to collect some of her things and decided to stay on for a few days. The two friends collected some drinks and went out on the beach for a day of sun, sea, and drinking. Tragically, it would be their last together. After leaving the beach, the pair went to another shop and picked up some more beer. But Randy was drinking much more heavily than Brooke, to the point where she was becoming rather annoyed by him. Another friend, Kyle, was supposed to be coming around to see them, but Brooke was in no mood to party at this point. She texts Kyle and says, "There's been a change of plans. Can you come and get me? I'm ready to kill Randy. He's pissing me off." By the time Kyle arrived, Randy was too drunk to even register Kyle's appearance, instead spending his time stumbling around the home looking for more to drink. Initially, Kyle said that he would stay the night to make sure that Brooke was okay, but Randy's behavior became worse, and Brooke insisted that they leave. She went to the closet to pack her things, finding Randy naked on the floor, moving only to put his finger to his mouth and say, "Shh." The next morning, Brooke returned home to pack some more of her things. Randy got out of bed, unsurprisingly not feeling too great. Brooke invited him down for breakfast, but Randy refused as he was in no fit state and decided to go back to bed. And this, according to Randy, is where his memory fades. He says he remembers Brooke closing the door, and that's all. 20 minutes later, Randy said he woke up with a hunting knife in his hand, and laying at his feet was the brutally mutilated body of Brooke. She had been stabbed approximately 25 times and was unrecognizable from the beautiful young girl she had been just a half an hour earlier. Randy was covered in scratch marks from his neck down to his feet. Whatever sparked these events, a struggle had clearly taken place. Neighbors also reported hearing a woman screaming that morning, but none went around to see what was happening. Randy, clearly in a panic, made his way to the nearest park where he called 911, telling the dispatcher that he wasn't sure what happened, but admitted that he must have been the one to kill Brooke. He then sent a text to his mom saying, "I love you," and waited for the police to arrive.
I didn't know what was happening. That's why I called 911. If I wanted to, I could have ran, but that wasn't what was on my mind. I didn't do this intentionally, and this was a person I cared about. This was a close friend, so my mind was I was just in shock.
Randy Allen Herman Jr. was born on December 28, 1992, in the small town of Laceyville, Pennsylvania, to his parents, Kathy Adams and Randy Herman Sr. Laceyville is a very small town with a population of around 500 people. By the time Randy went to high school, he was considered a well-rounded individual, liked by other students in his school. He grew very close to one person in particular, Jordan Preston, who he considered to be his best friend. Jordan and Randy had similar backgrounds, both having one younger sibling. They were inseparable. The families knew each other and would often eat together at the Preston household at least once a week. Brooke was Jordan's younger sister. Despite being younger, she became just as close to Randy as Jordan had. The three of them all spent time together, viewing each other not just as friends, but like family.
When Randy was little, if I wanted him to do something, I'd just pretend I was crying, and he'd do it just so I didn't cry. And even when he got older enough to know that I was pretending and I was faking, he'd still do it because he didn't want to see me sad. All right, fine, just get that look off your face and I'll do it. He's always been very good kid, very supportive, very respectful.
Randy graduated from school in 2011 and soon became the first person in his family to attend college, electing to study criminal justice at Manfield University in Pennsylvania. And he took a part-time job as a correctional officer at the county jailhouse. During college, however, Randy's life took a turn for the worse. In August of 2013, he was arrested for possession of cannabis, leading him to be fired from his job at the jail. On Labor Day of the same year, he was arrested again, this time for drunk driving. His drug problem had grown worse, leading him to drop out of college and go back home to begin working in the family's stone-cutting business. Randy thought that by leaving college, going home, and getting a job, he could leave his past behind, but that wasn't the case. Old habits die hard, and his problems followed him. In 2014, his sister got married. Randy, of course, attended the event, got drunk, and decided to go for a drive. His mother and other guests did try to stop him, telling Randy that he had had too much to drink to drive, but he said he was fine and he drove anyway. Once again, he was caught and arrested by police, and he found himself being charged for the second time with drunk driving. Because it was his second offense, Randy was forced to spend a month in prison. This came at the same time his father was on the run from the law. Randy Herman Sr. was a chief suspect in a murder of his girlfriend and had fled to Alabama to avoid law enforcement. Before he could be apprehended, Randy Sr. took his own life. Randy Sr. had made little to no effort to be close to his children, remaining a distant stranger, but despite this, Randy Jr. took the death of his father badly. After being released from prison, Randy contacted his best friend Jordan, who had recently moved to Florida. As you might expect, the two of them spoke regularly, with Jordan providing constant updates on his new life in the Sunshine State. Life in Florida sounded good to Randy, so he himself decided he wanted to go and live there. Brooke and Randy decided they would move to Florida and move in with Jordan just to get settled in. With the three of them being so close anyway, living together wasn't a problem, and Randy seemed to be getting his life together. He landed a well-paid full-time job at a marketing company. He was proud of his work and knew that working full-time was making his friends and family proud of him. But the job wouldn't last. After less than 6 months, Randy quit his job because he wasn't happy with the commission he was earning. This was probably the worst thing that he could have done. He had money in the bank due to his father leaving him $25,000 when he died, and now that he was unemployed, he had a lot of time on his hands and nothing to occupy it. As a result, Randy fell into his old ways, drinking excessively every night, his life once again spiraling out of control. He also developed a serious cocaine habit, and within 3 months of receiving his inheritance money, Randy was broke. Brooke had also had enough of Florida. She had seen someone for the last 4 years. Her boyfriend landed a great job in New York and asked Brooke to move in with him, which she did. The couple moved to Buffalo, New York in December of 2016. Brooke would return to Florida in early 2017 to collect the rest of her possessions. Brooke arrived on the 23rd of March and was surprised to see Randy in the state that he was in. The excessive drinking and drug use had taken its toll on him. He was at a true low point, but he had vowed to take positive actions to change his lifestyle. 2 weeks prior to Brooke's arrival, he had said that he would stop drinking and doing drugs for good, and so far he had managed to stay clean. Sadly though, once again, it didn't last. He and Brooke would decide to go on a day drinking trip to the beach on the 24th of March, where the last ever photo of Brooke alive would be taken. The next morning, Brooke would be dead. When the police arrived, they quickly handcuffed Randy and went to survey the scene at the apartment. Randy was questioned by police for 2 hours. He didn't really seem with it. He didn't appear to understand the gravity or seriousness of the situation when the police investigators were asking him the questions.
Who's Brooke? Huh? And who's Jordan? That's what we need to find out. Now, are they friends, girlfriends, wife?
You haven't told my mom yet?
No, nobody will. Do you want to be the one, or do you want us to make a phone call?
Like I said, this is Steve. I'm Jeremy. Basically, we just want to try to figure out what happened and what's going on. Okay? And we need your help for that.
The police handle Randy very carefully, even telling him that they can see that he is remorseful. A heavy-handed approach to this interview would really get them nowhere. Randy was so upset that he could barely breathe properly, much less answer questions.
What do you want us to tell your mom? Okay. What's mom's number? Do you want to talk to mom?
I can't.
The police, clearly getting nowhere with their questions, ask Randy if he would like to talk to his mom or if they should do it for him. Perhaps thinking that if he had his mom by his side, it might help Randy to compose himself and answer their questions. The police, it seems, had some genuine sympathy, or at least some empathy for Randy's situation.
Let me ask you an easy question. Who did you have the incident with? Is it Jordan, Brooke?
Brooke.
Okay, it's Brooke. Okay. And Jordan, did she leave state?
Is Brooke alive?
Well, right now they're back at the scene. Everything is still developing.
The police continued with their questions. What happened? How did it happen? How can we contact Brooke's family? But Randy continues to tell them that he didn't know what had happened or why it happened. He asked them if Brooke was alive, but at that time the police were reluctant to tell him that Brooke was already dead, possibly fearing that it would make the interview even more difficult than it already was.
Okay, you didn't just wake up today and say that something bad is going to happen or something good is going to happen. Things happen for a reason, Randy. Okay? You have to know. You know what happened. You just don't want to get it out, but you need to. Okay? It's tearing you up in there, Randy. You need to get it out. Okay? What is Brooke going to tell me happened? Okay? Is she going to say that you attacked her? Okay? What is she going to tell me? You need to do this now. All right? You need to do this for Brooke. All right?
It is highly unlikely that the police interviewing Randy wouldn't have known that Brooke was dead. But one of the officers leaves the room, and the other becomes ever so slightly more forceful with Randy, firing questions at him, even implying that Brooke was still alive by asking, "What is Brooke going to tell me? Is she going to tell me that you attacked her?" The police tried everything, good cop, bad cop. The more assertive of the two officers would try to probe harder, but nothing really seemed to work. Randy was adamant that he couldn't remember a single moment of the events which led to Brooke being murdered. With no results, the police basically abandoned their attempts to get any information from Randy. It wasn't through a lack of serious effort, of course, but they were clearly wasting their time. Randy was charged with first-degree murder and booked into jail, where he would remain until his trial. Randy spent the next 2 years behind bars awaiting his trial. In that time, he penned a 20-page letter to his attorneys, telling them why he was a good person, outlining the best qualities of himself. He wanted them to share this with the police and the court, but they didn't. At the request of his attorney, though, he was taken to a forensic psychiatrist for a psychological analysis. The psychiatrist discovered that Randy had a history of sleepwalking, which could potentially explain his memory blackout throughout the entire tragic event. His attorneys decided to enter a plea of not guilty and went for a plea of insanity due to him not being entirely responsible for his actions because he had been sleepwalking throughout. This might sound like a strange argument, but it was not the first of its kind. There had been a precedent set. In 1846, a Boston man was committed after killing a sex worker and trying to burn down the brothel she worked at. It was argued that he was a sleepwalker. In the 1860s, a man from Kentucky fell asleep in a hotel lobby, and when he was awoken suddenly by another man, he shot him 3 times. This was also put down to sleepwalking. But not everyone who uses this defense has gotten away with their crimes. More recently, in 1997, a man from Arizona stabbed his wife 44 times and then dragged her, still alive, to their swimming pool and then held her head underwater. He tried the sleepwalking defense, but was convicted of first-degree murder anyway. The forensic psychiatrist was called to testify in Randy's trial. He told the court he was genuinely puzzled by the case. He did say that homicide, while sleepwalking, was highly unlikely, but also that Randy fit the criteria for it to be possible. The criteria outlined were: the person attacked was well loved by the attacker. Randy had no history of violence. He couldn't remember anything from the attack. Randy's mother also testified on his behalf, stating that he had been sleepwalking since he was a little child. But Jordan, Brooke's sister, also testified, saying that in all the years that she had known Randy, she had never seen him sleepwalk once. The prosecution also brought up their own forensic psychiatrist, who said there was no way that Randy could have been sleepwalking when he murdered Brooke. He said that in his opinion, the actions were far too complex for someone to sleep through the entire event, even suggesting that Randy's motivation, again, in his opinion, may have been sexually motivated, possibly the result of sexual advances by Randy that were rejected by Brooke. It was this testimony that was the most damning for Randy, and it sealed his fate. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. He is serving his sentence at the Hardy Correctional Institution, a maximum security prison in Florida. He has tried to make the best of his situation by working as a math teacher and administration assistant, though it is said he rarely mixes with other people, instead choosing to immerse himself in different books that he acquires from the prison library. He has never denied murdering Brooke, but maintains to this day that he cannot remember the incident at all. He wrote a letter to the New York Times in which he stated what happened in this case may have been the result of stress, depression, trauma, and alcohol abuse. But despite accepting responsibility, he is still trying to have his conviction overturned because, as he put it, "I was sleepwalking." He has since stated that he believed his attorneys did not act in his best interests by pleading insanity because sleepwalking is not a mental illness. He has filed motions to have his conviction overturned, but none of these have been successful so far. Whether Randy Herman was sleepwalking or not that night, it is hard to argue that he does not deserve the punishment for taking away the life of a talented, independent young woman. He is now 30 years old and still remains in the high-security prison in Florida with little to no chance of release. As always, at Beyond Evil, we put the victims of these crimes and their memories first. Brook Chantelle Preston was described by someone as bringing joy to the lives of everyone she knew. Her mother described her as my happy-go-lucky baby. She was only 21 years old when her life was so cruelly taken away by the actions of Randy Herman. She was enjoying life with her boyfriend and had recently embarked on a new, exciting chapter of her life in New York. She had so much living left to do and so much more to offer the world. But now she will never be given those chances or opportunities. We hope that the Preston family and everyone else who knew Brooke has managed to rebuild their lives as best they can. She may be gone, but it is certain that this bright young woman will never be forgotten. Rest in peace, Brook Chantelle Preston. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below your take on it, and please subscribe to the channel. Also hit the notification bell in order to stay up to date each time we reveal a new shocking case. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.